Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Nick here with you. Welcome back to the Rock Squad channel, and welcome to my rock albums ranked for the best band of all time, the Beatles. You know, everybody's still kind of in the grip of Beatlemania again because of the release of Peter Jackson's Get Back documentary that came out a couple of weeks ago on Disney Plus. It was something that I enjoyed immensely. That review is actually up here on the channel, so if you want to check that out, I'll link it somewhere up here so you can check out the rock movie review for Get Back that I did. But as you might have seen in that video, I'm a gigantic Beatles fan. I grew up on the Beatles back when I was a kid. I have distinct memories of being in the car with my mom and listening to the oldies station here in Hamilton, Oldies 1150, and just growing up listening to the Beatles. Their music was always part of my life. And then when I became more of a music fan myself, I really dug into all their albums and became a musician, started playing their music. And so the Beatles are everything to me. They're one of my favorite bands of all time. If you saw in the Get Back review, I've also done the Beatles pilgrimages over the years to Liverpool and London, to Abbey Road, to Strawberry Fields, Penny Lane, all those places. I've been to all of them. I'm a gigantic Beatles fan. So I thought it'd be a good chance for me to finally do a rock albums ranked for the Beatles. And I think you're going to dig my rankings. At least I hope so. All right, before I get to the whole list, I just have to do an honorable mention for the Beatles Past Masters release. I know that this is an official album. It's just a compilation of various non-album singles that came out over the Beatles' career. But when you think about it, there are so many classic Beatles songs that they didn't have on albums. When you think about She Loves You and I Want to Hold Your Hand and Revolution and Hey Jude and all those tracks, Past Masters really rounds them all up into one place. So that is my honorable mention for the Beatles rock albums ranked. But let's get into it. Let's get to number 13 on my Beatles rock albums ranked. All right, coming in at number 13, right at the very bottom, is Yellow Submarine. And you know why this is at the bottom? It's just I don't really consider it to be much of a Beatles album. Half of it is just orchestral stuff that was done by George Martin for the Yellow Submarine animated film. And then the rest of the songs that lead off side A of this record, there's a little bit of a hodgepodge of songs left over from the Sgt Pepper and Magical Mystery Tour sessions or around then, except for Hey Bulldog, which is one of the best Beatles songs ever, and Yellow Submarine, which was originally on Revolver. You got Only a Northern Song and It's All Too Much, which aren't George Harrison's best tracks. They're okay. And then you have All Together Now, which is not one of the best Beatles songs. So as an album, it doesn't really stand up very much for me, but it's still the Beatles, but still got to come in at number 13 at the very bottom. We got Yellow Submarine. Coming in at number 12, we have the fourth Beatles record, and that is Beatles For Sale. And this record, it's okay. It's very much a mix of original tracks and cover songs, which is kind of disappointing because coming off A Hard Day's Night, which was front to back Lennon-McCartney compositions, they had to kind of revert back into being a little bit of a mix of a studio band and a rock and roll cover band on this record. And that's okay. You still have songs like No Reply and I'm a Loser, but then you have some, typical rock and roll cover songs from them, like Kansas City, Hey, 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 and Honey Don't, and that kind of thing. And just like they look on the record, the Beatles sound just kind of a little bit tired and directionless on Beatles For Sale. It feels like a little bit of a step back from A Hard Day's Night. Still a solid record, but maybe not one of their best. So coming in at number 12 is Beatles For Sale. Coming in at number 11 is the record that the Get Back documentary was all about, and that is Let It Be. And I think the thing about Let It Be that kind of is a little bit of a detraction for me is that it doesn't really feel like a complete album, especially with the inclusion of tracks like Dig It and Maggie May, which are just some of the jams that they recorded during the Get Back sessions. Definitely not full-on songs that were included on this record. Why didn't they put Don't Let Me Down on this? I'll never get that. Why you wouldn't put Don't Let Me Down, which was such a huge part of those sessions. And the rest of the songs are great, obviously. Two of Us and Take a Pony and Across the Universe and I Me Mine and Let It Be and The Long and Winding Road. There are a lot of great classic Beatles songs on this record. It's just not a record that I go back to listen to very often because it doesn't flow as well as some of the other Beatles records that I love. So coming in at number 11, we have Let It Be. Coming in at number 10, we have Help. Now, the thing about Help is that it feels like the Beatles are on autopilot a little bit, although there are some great songs on this record like Help and You're Gonna Lose That Girl and You've Got to Hide Your Love Away, Ticket to Ride. There are still a lot of great songs on the record. When you think about the records that came after it, like Rubber Soul and Revolver, it does feel like the Beatles are spinning in place just a little bit. They're spinning their wheels and maybe not flourishing creatively as much as they would on subsequent records. And obviously this is a soundtrack to the movie as well. But as an album, album, maybe not as good as some of the albums that preceded it or as the albums that came after it. And there are some filler tracks on this, like Tell Me What You See. I think it's one of the more boring Beatles songs that they've ever released. You Like Me Too Much, It's Only Love. There are some good songs on it, but overall it doesn't hold up much as an album, especially when you take into account the albums that came after it. So coming in at number 10 is Help. Coming in at number 9 is Magical Mystery Tour. Now, I know originally in the UK, this was released as an EP, so it wasn't part of the official Beatles album discography, but it has become that over the years. And I think aside from the Magical Mystery Tour side of the album, which is good, it's got Magical Mystery Tour, the title track, Fool on Hill, Your Mother Should Know, and I Am the Walrus, but then it's got two of the weakest Beatles tracks in Flying and Blue Jay Way. But I think what makes this album a little bit better is the inclusion of some of the non-album singles on its B-side. So Strawberry Fields Forever, Penny Lane, Baby You're a Rich Man, All You Need Is Love. That really takes this one up a little bit for me. And I know that Magical Mystery Tour is considered to be like Sgt. Pepper Jr. and obviously not as revolutionary as that record, but still enjoyable, especially when you include the non-album singles on the B-side. So coming in at number 9, we got Magical Mystery Tour. Coming in at number 8, we have With the Beatles, which along with I Want to Hold Your Hand is definitely the kind of like the signature album of Beatlemania in 1963 and 1964, and really includes some great songs on it that started to really cement Lennon and McCartney as the great songwriters that they were. It Won't Be Long, All I've Got to Do, All My Loving. Those are great songs. And it also has some great cover songs on it as well as, Roll Over Beethoven and You Really Got to Hold on Me. And this really is the pinnacle of early Beatles, the Beatlemania really at its height. And I know it should probably be a little bit higher on the list, but there are so many other great records, obviously, by the Beatles. So this one had to fall somewhere a little bit lower on the list, but still love it. Coming in at number 8 is With the Beatles. Coming in at number 7 on my Beatles rock albums ranked is Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which was revolutionary, released back in 1967. Obviously, I wasn't alive back then, but it's still revolutionary and still one of the best Beatles records, and really the turning point for them becoming more of a psychedelic band in 1967 during the Summer of Love. And really think about the songs on this record: Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, With a Little Help from My Friends, Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Getting Better, Fixing a Hole. The list goes on and on. And I think, although I do love Sgt. Pepper's, I listen to it a lot less than some of the other later Beatles records like Abbey Road or the White Album, because it's a little bit too psychedelic for me at times, a little bit too much of a circus atmosphere, which, while enjoyable, is not something that I want to listen to all the time. I do love Sgt. Pepper's, and it's still a great record, but maybe not the best Beatles record for me. And I know a lot of people might be yelling at me through their screens right now, like, Nick, how could you put Sgt. Pepper's at number 7 on your list? But that's how I feel about it. And it's a testament to the Beatles that one of their best records have come in at the middle point of my list. So coming in at number 7 is Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Coming in at number 6 is A Hard Day's Night, the first Beatles record that featured back-to-back right through Lennon McCartney originals. And what a record. You have the song A Hard Day's Night, which is just like the beginning, to me, like A Hard Day's Night is the beginning of like blockbuster Beatles. It's obviously the soundtrack to a movie, but it's the beginning of blockbuster Beatles, where they're really coming into their own and becoming the biggest band on the planet, one of the biggest bands, or the biggest band that was ever going to exist on planet Earth. A Hard Day's Night, Should Have Known Better, Tell Me Why, Can't Buy Me Love. So many classic songs. Can't Buy Me Love was one of my favorite Beatles songs when I was growing up. And really, this is such a great record. I think out of the, between this and Please Please Me, which will be coming up next on the list, spoiler alert, between these, they're probably my favorite early Beatles records to listen to. So coming in at number 6, we have A Hard Day's Night. Coming in at number 5, we have the Beatles' debut record from 1963, and that is Please Please Me. The band recorded this over the course of a day at Abbey Road Studios, and it's just an incredible debut record from any band, but it's really the Beatles kind of at the beginning of their career, right as they were coming into their own. They're not yet the huge band they would become during Beatlemania. They're not the stars that they would yet become, but they're this band that's coming off all those days in the cavern and all those days performing in Germany, and they've come to this point where they're in the studio recording some of their original songs, like I Saw Her Standing There and Please Please Me and Love Me Do, and then great songs from their cover repertoire, great R&B, rock and roll songs that really helped cement them to be one of the best live bands at the time. So really such an incredible record and such an incredible snapshot where the Beatles were at the beginning of their recording career at Abbey Road in 1963, and really I love listening to it. It's got so much charm to it. Such an incredible album. Coming in at number 5, we have Please Please Me. Coming in at number 4 on my rock albums ranked for the Beatles is Rubber Soul. That's right. And this is the turning point, like I was saying, for Help. That album was kind of the Beatles spinning their wheels, but Rubber Soul really was the turning point for them for when they started to become a studio entity. And this album obviously has a lot of Pot influence on it. It's got a lot of folk influence and Dylan influence on it. And the album benefits from that while still being a really tight record by a great rock and roll band. So you have songs like Drive My Car, Norwegian Wood, Nowhere Man, The Word, Girls, so many great songs on Rubber Soul. And while I do love Revolver just a little bit more, you'll get to that coming up on the list, Rubber Soul really is the beginning of the Beatles. Even though they were still a touring band, really is the beginning of them becoming a creative force in the studio. And it's just an incredible record. Coming in at number 4, we have Rubber Soul. Coming in at number 3 is the Beatles' double album opus from 1968. We're talking the White Album, one of the best double albums of all time. Like Ringo said in the Beatles anthology, a lot of information on a double album, but yeah, definitely one of the best double albums of all time, alongside Melancholy, Infinite Sadness, and The Fragile, and Stadium Arcadium. Yeah, White Album, all 30 songs, except for Revolution 9. I could never really listen to that thing in its entirety. But this is such an incredible record showing all the Beatles at their height. You have John, Paul, and George, and even Ringo contributing a song. But the three of those main songwriters really at the height of their game, contributing some incredible songs. For George, you have While My Guitar Gently Weeps and Piggies. And then for Paul, you had Back in the USSR, Obla Di Obla Da, I Love Martha, My Dear. And then with John, you had Your Blues and Happiness is a Warm Gun and Dear Prudence. So many great songs on this album. And after all the psychedelia of Sgt Peppers and Magical Mystery Tour, the Beatles really came back to being a great rock and roll band. And it's really incredible to think about that period of time. They released the White Album in November of 1968, immediately went starting into recording the Let It Be sessions in January of 1969, and then recorded Abbey Road in the summer of 1969. The level of output that these guys were doing at that time is absolutely incredible, and still one of the best double albums of all time, even though Ringo says there's a lot of information on a double album. Still incredible. Coming in at number 3 is the Beatles' White Album. Coming in at number 2, we have Abbey Road, the last album that the Beatles recorded. The last album they released was Let It Be, but Abbey Road was the last album that they recorded. And it's such an incredible swan song for the band. When you think about the Beatles' discography from Please Please Me right through to Abbey Road, it's really this perfect story, this perfect discography of this perfect story of this amazing band that we were blessed to listen to their music. And you know, the album ends with the song The End. Like, can you think of a better song to end a record with than The End? And the songs preceding that aren't anything to sneeze at either. When you think about like Come Together, Something, Here Comes the Sun, Oh Darling, I Want You, She's So Heavy, leading into the melody medley, which is one of my favorite pieces of music of all time. What a great swan song for the Beatles, and such an incredible final album. And it's just, they were still innovating. They still sound like they're moving forward on Abbey Road, even though it's their last studio album together. They still sound like they were moving into the future. And I just love it so much. One of my most listened to Beatles albums ever. So coming in at number 2 is Abbey Road. And coming in at number 1 on my rock albums ranked for the Beatles is their album from 1966. I'm talking about Revolver. Revolver is my absolute favorite Beatles album of all time. It's after Rubber Soul. That's when they were really starting to come into their own. I know Sgt Peppers kind of gets the credit for being the studio album that, you know, the Beatles really propelled into the future. But to me, Revolver is the album that really did it for me. It really is them firing on all cylinders. When you think about the George songs on this record, leading off with Taxman right on this record, into I Want You To and I Want to Tell You. So many great songs from George. Paul is hitting his stride as a pop songwriter on this album, from Good Day Sunshine, Eleanor Rigby, Got to Get You Into My Life. And then John experimenting on songs like Tomorrow Never Knows and I'm Only Sleeping, backwards guitars, loops, horns, all sorts of different things going on this record. To me, this is the Beatles at their creative apex. They're doing absolute incredible things on this album, and the songs on it just kick so much ass. And it's one of my, I guess, my favorite Beatles albums, one of the ones I listen to the most. So coming in at number 1 on my rock albums ranked of the Beatles, it's Revolver. All right, guys, that is my rock albums ranked for the Beatles. Let me know your rankings in the comments below. Let's get a little discussion going about the best band of all time. Make sure to like this video. We would appreciate that. Make sure to subscribe to us here on the Rock Squad channel so you don't miss out on any videos in the future. Hit the notification bell and make sure to subscribe to us or follow us on social media on Twitter and Instagram at Rock Squad Pod. Make sure to check out our band. We're called Fools Union. You can check us out on every streaming service, including Spotify and Bandcamp and Apple Music, and at foolsunion.com. So we'll see you guys again for another video here on the Rock Squad channel. Until then, rock on, everybody.